I was 8 years old when I first noticed how Mrs. Chen always seemed to know things she shouldn't know. It started small, the way these things always do. I'd walk into the school library during my free period, shoulders slumped from another failed math test, and she'd already have a book waiting on the counter. "This might help with fractions, Goldie," she'd say with that warm smile, her fingers drumming softly against the book's cover. I never told her I was struggling with fractions. Mrs. Chen had been our school librarian for as long as anyone could remember. She was the kind of adult that kids naturally gravitated toward, with her cardigan sweaters and the way she remembered everyone's favorite genres. She ran the after-school tutoring program in the library, and somehow she always paired students with exactly the right helper. Crew got matched with the quiet kid who was brilliant at science. Onder found himself sitting with the girl who could explain history like she'd lived through it herself. And me, I got Mrs. Chen's personal attention. "Your mother must be so proud of your reading level," she mentioned one afternoon as I checked out a chapter book that was probably too advanced for me. I felt a flush of pride until I realized I'd never mentioned my mom to her. When I asked how she knew, Mrs. Chen just laughed that tinkling laugh and said teachers talk to each other. It made sense at the time. The first real warning sign came 3 weeks later. I was having trouble concentrating during tutoring because my parents had been fighting more than usual. Their voices had leaked through the thin walls of our house the night before, sharp and cutting. I kept staring at the same page without reading it, my mind replaying the word divorce that I'd heard whispered between them. Mrs. Chen appeared beside my table with a book I'd never seen before. "Sometimes families go through changes, Goldie," she said softly, placing it in front of me. The cover showed a sad-looking kid sitting between two houses. "This might help you understand what's happening at home." My stomach dropped. I hadn't told anyone about my parents fighting. Not even my best friend Ander knew. Yet here was Mrs. Chen offering exactly what I needed to hear. When I asked her how she knew, her smile faltered for just a moment before returning. "Oh, sweetie, you just look like you could use a friend." The next day, my parents sat me down and told me they were getting divorced. After that, I started paying closer attention to Mrs. Chen. I noticed how she'd greet students by name even when they'd never introduced themselves. How she'd suggest books that perfectly matched whatever crisis they were facing at home. When Kenzo came to school with a black eye, she quietly slipped him a book about bullying. When Crew's grandmother died, Mrs. Chen had grief counseling pamphlets ready before the funeral was even announced. Other kids started whispering about her too. Ander told me that Mrs. Chen had asked him strange questions about his family's vacation plans. Kenzo mentioned that she always seemed to know when his little sister was sick, even though she'd never met her. The older kids avoided the library altogether, muttering about how Mrs. Chen was weird and knew too much. One afternoon, I decided to test her. I made up a story about my imaginary pet hamster named Buttons being sick. Mrs. Chen nodded sympathetically and promised to look for books about pet care. But the next day, she pulled me aside with genuine concern in her eyes. "Goldie, honey, I drove past your house last night and I didn't see any pet supplies in your yard. Are you sure Buttons is real?" The way she said it, so gentle and knowing, made my skin crawl. She'd been to my house, she'd been watching. That's when I started noticing her car parked on my street at odd hours. A blue sedan that would idle at the corner, just close enough to see into our living room windows. I'd catch glimpses of her silhouette behind the wheel, sometimes writing in a notebook, sometimes just watching. Ander mentioned seeing the same car on his street. Crew whispered that her mom had noticed it too. The final piece fell into place during an after-school tutoring session when I accidentally knocked over Mrs. Chen's purse. Photos scattered across the floor, pictures of students' houses, their bedrooms taken from outside windows, family portraits clearly photographed through glass doors. I saw Anders' house, Kenzo's backyard, even Crew's bedroom window. And at the bottom, manila folders with all our names on them, filled with detailed notes about our daily routines, our parents' work schedules, even what we ate for breakfast. Mrs. Chen's face went pale as she scrambled to collect the evidence. "Oh, Goldie," she whispered. And for the first time, her voice wasn't warm. It was desperate. You shouldn't have seen that. I was just trying to help you children. I need to know how to help. I ran from that library and never went back. Neither did Ander, Kenzo, or Crew after I told them what I'd seen. Years later, as an adult, I still check my locks 3 times before bed. I research anyone who shows too much interest in my life, who knows details they shouldn't know. Because I learned at 8 years old that sometimes the people who claim they want to help you are the ones you should fear most. Mrs. Chen taught me that kindness can be a mask, and the most dangerous predators are the ones who make you feel special while they're studying you like specimens in a jar. I was 9 years old when I learned that some games don't have winners, only survivors. It happened at my cousin Davina's 10th birthday party in the sprawling basement of her family's old Victorian house. What started as innocent hide-and-seek became something that still haunts my dreams 30 years later. Davina had always been the weird cousin, the one who collected dead insects in mason jars and whispered to imaginary friends in corners. But her birthday parties were legendary among our extended family because her parents went all out. Elaborate decorations, magicians, and that massive basement converted into the ultimate playground. This year, 12 of us cousins and neighborhood kids had gathered for what Davina promised would be the best game ever. The basement stretched beneath the entire house, a maze of interconnected rooms that had once served as servants' quarters. Some rooms were finished with carpet and paneling, others remained raw stone and exposed beams. Perfect for hiding, Davina explained, with that unsettling grin she got when she was excited about something. The rules are simple, she announced, as we gathered in a circle on the main room's shag carpet. I count to 100. Everyone hides. Last person I find wins. She paused, her dark eyes scanning each of our faces. But here's the special part. Once I tag you, you become a helper. You help me find the others. Crew raised her hand. What if we don't want to be helpers? Davina's smile widened. Oh, you will. Trust me. When she started counting, we scattered like startled mice. I squeezed myself behind an old furnace in the utility room, listening to footsteps thundering overhead as the others found their hiding spots. The basement felt different once everyone disappeared. Colder, more oppressive. The single bare bulb in my room cast strange shadows that seemed to move independently. Davina's counting echoed through the basement. 97, 98, 99, 100. Ready or not, here I come. At first, everything seemed normal. I heard Davina's voice calling out as she searched, occasionally punctuated by squeals of discovery and laughter. Found you, Ander. Now you're my helper. Then, minutes later, gotcha, Kenzo. Come help us find the others. But as time passed, something felt wrong. The voices became muffled, distant. The laughter stopped. I crouched behind that furnace for what felt like hours, my legs cramping, waiting for someone to find me. The basement had grown completely silent except for the occasional creak of floorboards upstairs, where the adults were having their own party. Finally, I couldn't stand it anymore. I crawled out from my hiding spot and called out softly, "Hello? Davina, is the game over?" No response. I made my way through the basement rooms, checking all the obvious hiding spots. Behind the old couch in the recreation room. Empty. Under the stairs, nothing. In the storage closet, just dusty. Boxes and Christmas decorations. Room after room, I found no trace of the other kids. That's when I noticed the door. It was tucked away in the furthest corner of the basement, painted the same dingy white as the walls so it almost disappeared. I'd never seen it during previous visits to Davina's house. The doorknob was old brass, tarnished black in places, and when I pressed my ear against the wood, I could hear something on the other side. Soft sounds, maybe voices, maybe just the house settling. I tried the handle, locked. "Davina," I called out, louder this time. "Where is everyone?" Footsteps on the stairs made me spin around. Davina descended slowly, alone, that same unsettling smile plastered across her face. But something was different about her. Her eyes seemed darker, more focused, and her voice, when she spoke, had a strange quality. Too calm, too controlled for a 10-year-old. "There you are, Myra," she said, my name sounding wrong in her mouth. "I've been looking everywhere for you." "Where are the others?" I asked, backing away from the locked door. "Where's Ander and Kenzo?" "Oh, they're really good at hiding," Davina whispered, moving closer. "They're playing the quiet game now. Want to join them?" She reached for my hand, and I noticed her fingernails were dirty, almost black under the tips, as if she'd been digging or clawing. I ran. I bolted up the basement stairs, taking them two at a time, and burst into the kitchen where the adults were laughing over coffee and cake. "Something's wrong," I gasped. "The other kids, they're gone. Davina locked them somewhere." The adults exchanged those looks that grown-ups give each other when a child is being dramatic. Davina's mother, my Aunt Carol, patted my head condescendingly. "Oh, sweetie, they probably just went outside to play. You know how kids are." But when we checked the backyard, it was empty. When we called their names from the front porch, no one answered. One by one, the parents started making phone calls, their voices growing more concerned with each unanswered ring. "When did you last see Ander?" my mother asked me as we drove home that night, the party cut short by the mystery of the missing children. I told her about the game, about the locked door, about how strange Davina had acted. But even as I spoke, the memories felt slippery, hard to hold on to, like trying to remember a dream after waking up. The next morning, I called Ander's house to see if he'd made it home safely. His mother answered, confused. "Ander. Honey, Ander's been missing for 3 weeks. We thought you knew. There have been search parties, police reports." My blood turned to ice. 3 weeks. But he'd been at the party yesterday. I'd seen him get tagged first, heard Davina call his name. I called Kenzo's house next. Same story. He'd been missing for a month. When I tried to tell the adults what I remembered, they looked at me with pity and concern. The official story became that I'd had some kind of episode, mixed up memories and reality because of the trauma of the missing children. They sent me to a counselor who helped me process what had really happened. That I'd gone to Davina's party alone, played by myself in the basement, and created false memories of the other children being there. But I know what I experienced that day, and I know that when I drive past Davina's old house now 30 years later, I can still see children's faces in the basement windows sometimes. Pale, sad faces that look exactly like Ander and Kenzo, and the others who got good at hiding that day. Davina moved away shortly after her birthday party. The house sits empty now, but the basement door with the tarnished brass handle is probably still there, still locked. And sometimes, on quiet nights, I wonder if the game is still going on. If those children are still hiding, still waiting for someone to find them and let them come home. I was 7 years old when I learned that not all adults who offer help actually want to help you. It started innocently enough, the way these things always do. Kenzo's dad offered to give me rides home from school, since we lived in the same neighborhood, and my mom was working late shifts at the hospital. Mr. Peterson seemed like the perfect solution, friendly, reliable, always had a pocket full of candy and a smile for everyone. Kenzo and I had been friends since kindergarten, so when his dad suggested the carpool arrangement, my mother was grateful. "What a blessing," she said, shaking Mr. Peterson's hand in our driveway. "Ander's been taking the bus for months, and you know how long that route is." Mr. Peterson laughed, ruffling my hair with a hand that felt too heavy, lingered too long. "Happy to help out a neighbor. Besides, Kenzo could use the company, couldn't you, buddy?" But Kenzo just stared at his shoes and mumbled something I couldn't hear. The first few rides were exactly what they should have been. Mr. Peterson would pick us up from the school parking lot in his dark blue minivan, ask about our day, and drive straight to my house first, then Kenzo's. He kept a bowl of peppermints in the cup holder and played classic rock that made him tap his fingers against the steering wheel. Everything felt normal, safe, routine. It was in the third week that things started changing. "Hey, boys, I need to make a quick stop," Mr. Peterson announced one afternoon as we buckled our seatbelts. Instead of turning right toward our neighborhood, he went left, toward the older part of town, where the houses sat farther apart and the trees grew thick along the road. "Where are we going?" I asked, pressing my face against the window as familiar landmarks disappeared. "Just picking something up from a friend," he said, catching my eyes in the rearview mirror. "Won't take long. This can be our little adventure, right? Just between us boys." He pulled into the driveway of a small rundown house with newspapers stacked on the porch and curtains drawn tight across every window. "Wait here," he instructed, but something in his tone made it sound less like a request and more like a command. "I'll be right back." Kenzo and I sat in the van for 20 minutes, the engine ticking as it cooled before Mr. Peterson emerged from the house. His hair looked messy, his shirt wrinkled, and he carried a small paper bag that he tucked into the glove compartment without explanation. "Sorry about that, boys. Sometimes grown-up business takes longer than expected." But this became our new routine. Every few days there would be another quick stop at another unfamiliar house. Sometimes Mr. Peterson would be gone for 10 minutes, sometimes an hour. He always returned looking disheveled, and always with that same paper bag that went straight into the glove compartment. "This is our special secret," he reminded us regularly, his eyes finding mine in the mirror. "Your parents don't need to worry about these little detours. They might not understand that sometimes the most direct route isn't always the best route." I started noticing other changes too. Mr. Peterson began asking strange questions during our drives. What time did my mom get home from work? Did we have neighbors who checked on me? What did I like to do when I was home alone? His questions felt too personal, too probing. But when you're 7 years old, you assume adults have good reasons for everything they ask. Kenzo grew quieter with each passing week. He stopped talking during the rides, just stared out his window with an expression I didn't recognize then but understand now as fear. When I tried to start conversations about school or video games, he'd just shake his head or give one-word answers. One afternoon, as we were getting into the van, I noticed dark purple marks on Kenzo's upper arms, visible when his shirt sleeve rode up. "What happened to your arms?" I asked. Kenzo yanked his sleeve down quickly and shot a nervous glance toward his father. "Nothing. I fell off my bike." But Mr. Peterson was watching us in the rearview mirror with an expression I'd never seen before. Cold, calculating. "Kenzo's been clumsy lately," he said, his voice carrying a warning that made my stomach twist. "Haven't you, son?" The breaking point came 3 weeks later. Mr. Peterson had made another one of his mysterious stops, this time at a house with boarded-up windows and a yard full of weeds. While we waited in the van, I noticed Kenzo was crying silently, tears streaming down his face as he stared at his hands folded in his lap. "Are you okay?" I whispered. That's when he showed me what was hidden under his jacket, a small disposable camera, the kind adults used for special occasions. He takes pictures," Kenzo whispered, his voice so quiet I could barely hear him. "He says it's our game, but it's not a game, Ander. It's not a game." My 7-year-old brain couldn't fully process what Kenzo was telling me, but every instinct in my body screamed that something was terribly wrong. When Mr. Peterson returned to the van that day, I saw him differently. His smile looked predatory. His friendly questions sounded like interrogations. The way he watched me in the mirror felt like a hunter studying prey. "You know what, Mr. Peterson," I said, as we pulled into my driveway that afternoon. "I think I'm going to start taking the bus again. My mom said she wants me to be more independent." His grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Is that so? Well, I think your mother and I should have a conversation about what's best for you, Ander. Sometimes children don't know what's good for them." The threat in his voice was unmistakable, but I was already unbuckling my seatbelt, already reaching for the door handle. "Thanks for the ride," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. That night, I told my mother everything about the strange stops, the paper bags, the questions, and especially about Kenzo's tears and the camera. She listened with growing horror, her face pale, her hand shaking as she reached for the phone to call the police. Mr. Peterson was arrested 2 weeks later. The investigation revealed a network of child exploitation that had been operating for years, with multiple victims across several school districts. The quick stops had been meetings with other predators, trading materials and information. The camera Kenzo had shown me was just one of many pieces of evidence that put Mr. Peterson away for 25 years. Kenzo moved away with his mother shortly after the trial. I never saw him again, but I hope he found peace somewhere far from the memories of those car rides. Now, as an adult with children of my own, I hyperanalyze every adult who shows interest in my kids. I research soccer coaches and music teachers and family friends with the thoroughness of a detective. My wife thinks I'm paranoid, overly protective, but she doesn't understand what I learned at 7 years old. That predators don't look like monsters. They look like helpful neighbors with minivans full of candy and smiles that hide unspeakable intentions. They earn your trust first, and by the time you realize what's happening, you're already trapped in their web of secrets and shame. The carpool arrangement taught me that sometimes the most dangerous journey isn't to an unfamiliar destination. It's climbing into a car with someone you thought you could trust.